Hello, everybody. It's Victor with Cardiac Wire, and today we'll be talking to Joe Seibert. He's the imaging director at Precision Imaging Centers, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his experience with PIA's image post-processing service. With that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Joe?
Well, thanks, Victor. I'm Joe Seibert, and I have been in this imaging space for about 30 years now as a CT tech, MR tech, now currently as an imaging director, where it's kind of my job to keep the radiologists happy, to make sure we're up on all our latest, post-processing and techniques and protocoling. So PIA is really a company that we sought out to fill one of those needs.
Well, Joe, thank you for that introduction. And you mentioned that a big part of your job is keeping your team happy. One of the things we've heard a lot with imaging has just been the strain and the burden with increased demand, but staffing shortages. Could you tell us a little bit about how PIA has helped you achieve operational relief for your technologists?
Sure, it really helped. We started in this space, back in 2004 when CCTA really started to become very popular, and we were doing a lot of it on our own. But as we grew as a company, especially for our imaging center, who does quite a bit of CCTAs, it wasn't feasible for the tech to do that post processing and then sit with the cardiologist afterwards to go over those studies on, standalone systems that maybe come with the scanner or, purchasing some software yourself, like a Vitria type of support. It made sense to go with a third party as our business evolved. It allowed the tech to scan more patients and not be burdened by having to do that processing. We've tried out a few companies. We have had success with PIA now more than with other companies in terms of evolving with our business, not just the speed aspect of it, being able to have, good turnaround times and, the post processing being of high quality, but also being able to add on or stack extra things like, FFR and left ventricle analysis or, MR, cardiac, just things that we need, not all the time, but, as asks by, referring physicians. So as our business has evolved and PIA's business has evolved, it kind of, it matched up with what we were looking to do.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you mentioned kind of the evolutionary side of things for your business. Could you go a little bit deeper on maybe how PA service has helped with coverage, capacity, and scalability across all of your imaging needs?
Sure. As we opened more sites and, we did more CCTAs, we were able to actually lower the cost on our CCTAs because we were doing, more of them in bulk and having PIA be able to do that processing. It was taking less time for the tech. So they kind of went hand in hand. It also it allowed some of our, techs to kinda grow into their positions as well as, we were short-staffed and having new techs, being able to teach somebody just how to do the CTA portion and not having to do, the breakdown of vessels or, the, left ventricle analysis or the other things that come with it. It was very important for us.
Interesting. And so, kind of on the other side of that, there's obviously the business efficiency and scalability. But could you maybe tell me a little bit about on the physician side? Have you heard from your radiologists about how PIA impacts their efficiency?
Yeah, sure. Through the years, we've kind of gone back and forth with readers, having cardiologists read, or having radiologists read, or having right now what we have is a blend of the two, where the cardiologist reads out the arteries and the radiologist will read out the, extra lungs or, soft tissue. So we have like that kind of blend. Right now, everything I've heard from cardiologists and radiologists are that they're happy with what, PA is producing for us. Sometimes we'll have, patients that have, a difficult cardiac exam and you maybe have some misregistration on it. And, the PIA works up those arteries. Then we can send additional images and they'll work those up as well, which is very helpful. And it provides a service where we, our communication with the PIA team, the analysis, where we could ask them for certain asks like, hey, can we have, these particular cardiac views? Can we have these particular contrast levels? Because it's this particular radiologist likes this window level, this one likes this window level. So it can be very symbiotic, the relationship between the processors and the site where everybody's getting what they need.
Interesting. And I'm glad that you mentioned a little bit about the analysis side. Obviously, one thing we've seen with medical imaging and cardiac imaging in specific this year is a lot of access to AI. There's a lot of AI softwares being developed for all these different modalities. So I wanted to ask you a little bit, how does PIA help simplify some of the access to AI and advanced services that maybe you wouldn't just have in your clinic or in your imaging center?
We're able to kind of benefit, from not having to purchase contracts on all these different, lanes of, reconstructions. We do cardiac MR, but we don't do a lot of cardiac MR. So for us to purchase like these additional like contracts with people, it would be pretty expensive, and it wouldn't be worthwhile. It could be either a cut and dry situation where you either do a lot of cardiac to support having the software, or you have a company like PIA, which has that software ready and allows you to do like a case by case basis, or even sometimes thrown in, um, some post processing. Unlike, let's say, your MR cardiacs, your TAVRs, things that you would normally have to have, contracts for all these different things if you were going to go out and try to find an AI venue. Those AI venues are really nice, but we don't want to be the company that has 27 different companies that we are sending images to. PAA just seems to be the one that has the most to offer in all those lanes.
Yeah, so it really sounds like they're able to help you streamline a lot of your imaging needs, and that way you have one point of contact. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, they're a one-stop shop for us.
Yeah, and that kind of gets us into the next topic is this idea of standardization across your imaging quality. And so, have you seen PIA maybe help with that side of things where your quality, your standardization, and your consistency across your results, is that something that's improved or kind of stayed the same?
Well, it's definitely improved from when we did it our own, and then also I find that the analysts at PIA are very thorough. So we've had, PIA's competitors, and, we struggled with turnaround time, communication, you know, image quality itself. I feel like the analysts at PIA really take the time to make sure what they're sending back to us is of high quality. Um, and when you have that same team providing that throughout all of our centers, we have 6 sites that are sending cases. Um, every center is getting the same type of imaging back, which really standardizes what the radiologist is seeing so that you're not saying, hey, why does this center have this level of processing, but not this site? Or it all comes out of high quality.
Interesting. And so, kind of going deeper on that high quality impact, have you seen maybe improvements in patient and referring physician satisfaction since implementing this service?
It definitely has improved the referring physician's attitude towards sending patients to us. Sometimes that's a trust. Anybody could scan those cardiacs, but making sure that the especially the cardiologists are getting to see what they need to see in order to keep somebody from getting a catheterization or getting unnecessary treatment. You have to have good work. So make having a very good standard of what we are giving back to the community is very important because they're looking at the images. They're not just going by the report. So we have to have that standardization. And I felt like through the last few years with PIA, it's definitely sent more business our way having that.
Well, it makes sense that that's very helpful from the business side. I wanted to get a little bit more into the operational side now. I'm curious on the side of IT and cybersecurity, have you seen maybe some of the burden on your imaging center decrease because of your relationship with PIA and the service they provide?
Yeah, that's I don't know too much about the security aspect. That's an IT to IT kind of thing. It's not really my wheelhouse, but I know that we have other types of businesses that we send images to. And if there's ever cybersecurity, I hear about it. And with PA, I've never had any issues with cybersecurity. And as far as just usability from an IT perspective, IT is internet slowdowns are always going to happen. And, sometimes you always get the pointing finger. Well, it's on your side. Well, it's on your side. PIA does a very good job of alerting us to when we have slowdowns for images. The images aren't crossing. At what times is very specific. So I can send that back to our IT team and say, listen, this is coming from, the analysts at PIA. They only have half the images. They're crossing really slow, and then we can isolate issues. Um, and it's done routinely. Like, I don't have to reach out. They're reaching out to me first. So they're very good at a first response when things aren't traveling the way they're supposed to. It's actually changed some of our um, way we deliver images, like in batch processes, maybe at certain times of the day where it's not so heavy at our site, so they go faster. So we've tempered our batch sending to what worked for both companies. So I thought that was really good of PIA to be on top of that. They really created that change.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then maybe from the financial operations side, what's it been like working with PIA in terms of their financials and how that works for you?
We've been very happy with what we have been paying per case. As we've grown, I feel like PIA has not, you know, raised our prices because they see us growing, and I feel like it's been a very consistent um, charge on cases. So we always know what we're going to pay. So as our business grows and we do more and more CTAs, we can project what that costs and sometimes be able to work that back in how much we charge, for the exams themselves. Ease some of the burden on the patients to maybe see more CTAs because in the end we're here for the community, and we want to make it affordable. So being able to still provide this at a good service and a good price, PI definitely helps keep that price, you know, to where we need to be.
Yeah, that seems very fair. And I can see how it would definitely improve both physician and patient satisfaction to know exactly how much it's going to cost to get the work done
Yeah, so
and
we
not
could
have to have
project.
any. Sorry.
I said we could project how much everything's gonna cost.
Wonderful. Um, on that note, I do, before we wrap up, want to give you the opportunity to maybe get your message out there to your colleagues. What's one thing you would like your fellow imaging directors or fellow people in the imaging space to know about PIA or about anything else?
Well, it is a great solution for being able to do CCTAs, which I think personally are, of great value to the community. Um, I'm glad that in the past few years that, the word is getting out about, having your calcium score, and then, if there is stuff on your calcium score, getting a CCTA. So I really believe wholeheartedly in the having these CCTAs, and with that, being able to process them efficiently in the workspace is a problem that you will run into when the word gets out. So um, having a solution like PIA to ease that burden, so where you can provide this to the community and not have to worry about, you know, all the post processing that comes with it and bogging down the text at the workstation. It's really helpful. So I would suggest having a post processing company do that for you instead of you doing it at the imaging site or at the hospital. And I think PIA is probably the top one for me.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for all of that background. And your expertise really shines through in all the explanations you gave today. That's all we have time for today, but it's been really rewarding to learn more about PIA's post processing service through someone who uses it and manages it directly. With that, I've been Victor Scariaguar. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, sir.